Everyone can recall the moment when Earth plunged into darkness and all our gadgets stopped. It was like going back to the olden times, a real technological blackout. People soon realized that almost half the population had become mindless, just following orders without thinking. The one who could tell this strange tale best was Gary King. He stumbled upon the secret that aliens were living among us, secretly turning folks into brainless idiots. In the year 1990, in the quaint town of Newton Haven, Gary King and his 4 buddies had just graduated from high school. Eager to celebrate their newfound freedom, they devised a plan for what would become the most memorable night of their lives, conquering the Golden Mile, a renowned route boasting 12 pubs of pure alcoholic indulgence. They zoomed into town, wasting no time as the party kicked off. Pub after pub, they drank without a care in the world, reveling in the thrill of their adventure. By the 5th pub, things had spiraled into a blur, with some of them blacking out. Ignoring the last 3 pubs, they headed for the hills to greet the morning sun. It was then, amidst the beauty of dawn, that Gary King sensed life would never again be as exhilarating. Now, in an AA meeting for recovering alcoholics, an older Gary King recounts the tale. Reflecting on his journey, he realizes his quest to relive that fateful night has led him astray. The realization dawns upon him: they never completed the Golden Mile. Perhaps that's the closure he needs to move on from his obsession. Determined to bury the past, Gary King hatches a plan to reunite his crew and revisit Newton Haven. He sets out to find them, recruiting each one into his mission to recreate the pinnacle of their youth. Peter, once the nerdy kid, now a father of 2 and a car salesman; Steve, who owns his own construction company; Oliver, now a real estate agent; and Andrew, Gary King's former best friend turned lawyer, all agreed to a night out after Gary deceived them by claiming his mother had passed away. Little did they know, they were in for a night they'd likely regret. Gary, the mastermind, picked everyone up, and they headed to their hometown of Newton Haven. Upon arrival, Gary had meticulously planned out their adventure, starting with the first post, then moving on to the familiar pubs: the famous Cock, the Cross Hands, the Good Companions, the Trusty Servant, the Two-Headed Dog, the Mermaid, the Beehive, the King's Head, the Hole in the Wall, and ending at the ultimate pub, the World's End. They wasted no time and headed straight to the first post. However, things took an unexpected turn as they walked in. Nobody seemed to recognize them, not even the bartender. It was odd, considering they were once very close friends. Nevertheless, they ordered their beers and decided to proceed with their night, despite the unsettling reception. After finishing their first pint at the first post, they moved on to the old familiar pubs. Once again, nobody seemed to remember them, not even those they were once close to. As they drank their second pint, Oliver's sister Sam unexpectedly showed up in town. A misunderstanding led Gary to follow her into the restroom, causing an awkward situation that prompted her to leave. Undeterred, they pressed on to the third pub, the famous Cock. This time, they were recognized, but Gary's lifetime ban from the pub led to them being denied service and promptly ejected. Gary managed to sneakily gulp down some leftover beers from a table outside before they moved on to the fourth pub. By the time they reached the fourth pub, the rest of the group was tired and ready to call it a night, abandoning Gary in his quest. Feeling disheartened, Gary retreated to the bathroom, realizing that the night was not unfolding as he had envisioned. As Gary was relieving himself, a teenager barged into the restroom. Despite Gary's attempts to engage him politely, the young lad completely ignored him, infuriating Gary. In a fit of anger, Gary knocked the teen's hat off, only to be met with aggression as the teen attacked him, slamming his head against the mirror. In a desperate move, Gary retaliated, body slamming the teen to the floor, but to his horror, the teen's head popped off, spilling blue blood from his neck. As the rest of the group entered the restroom, they were stunned by the surreal sight. More of these teens flooded in, launching attacks on them. Peter, quick on his feet, crawled and hid in a nearby toilet, while the others fought against the relentless onslaught. Despite the teens' superior strength, the men managed to tear off their limbs and crush their heads. Soon, severed body parts littered the floor, painting a gruesome picture. It all began to make sense. The entire town had been infiltrated by these creatures, explaining why nobody recognized them. As the group was too intoxicated to drive, they resolved to continue Gary's plan, pretending ignorance until morning. While it seemed like a terrible plan to most, it appeared brilliant to the drunken men. They finished their drinks and ventured out, attempting to blend in with the crowd. However, the more intoxicated they became, the more they deviated from their charade, standing out conspicuously. At the Two-Headed Dog, they encountered Sam, accompanied by 2 blanks. Gary pulled her aside into the restroom to explain the dire situation. The entire town had been infiltrated by robots filled with blue blood. Given Gary's dubious reputation, Sam dismissed his claims, not believing a word he said. Outside, while Sam smoked with her friends, Gary charged and knocked them to the ground. In a frantic struggle, He choked one of the robots and tore its head off, smashing it on the ground. The other blank joined the fray, almost overpowering Gary until he threw them against the fence. Before they could escape, another robot appeared and attacked them. Fortunately, Steve intervened, and together they managed to subdue the robot and remove its head. They hastily departed, making their way to the 8th pub, the Mermaid. To their surprise, the establishment had been transformed into a lively nightclub, filled with robots dancing in perfect unison. As they observed the spectacle, 3 underage girls, dressed in school uniforms, started dancing towards them, their allure proving irresistible. Succumbing to the enchantment, they lost themselves in the moment, fully captivated by the dancing girls. Steve was taken away from the club by Old Man Basil, who wanted to share something important. He explained that aliens came to Earth as a shooting star. Slowly, people started to change because the aliens replaced influential folks. These aliens tried to convince others to join them peacefully, often taking people's DNA through sweat, saliva, and kissing. Old Man Basil warned Steve about the blanks, who looked just like humans but had their memories changed. After telling Steve to save his friends, Old Man Basil disappeared. Steve rushed back to his friends and pulled them away from the blanks at the Mermaid. Together, they left quickly, knowing they had to stay safe from the alien threat. As they sat down in the beehive, Oliver's behavior became strange, his energy levels unusually high, despite having consumed 8 pints of beer. Andrew, the only one to notice, grew suspicious. Sensing something amiss, he grabbed an empty bottle and struck Oliver on the head. To everyone's shock, Oliver's head split open, revealing it was completely empty. Suddenly, all the blanks in the pub stood up, their mouths and eyes glowing as they declared their intention to forcefully replace them. Andrew, fed up with their deception, grabbed 2 bar stools and fought back fiercely, smashing and decapitating the blanks. The pub erupted into chaos as a full-blown war ensued. Even Oliver joined the fray, attempting to subdue the blanks before being knocked away by Gary. Despite their efforts to beat and decapitate the blanks, they kept regenerating and attacking anew. Gary, realizing the gravity of the situation, grabbed Sam's hand and led her upstairs in an attempt to escape. However, they encountered 2 more blanks, whom they managed to dispatch before fleeing through a window. In a desperate move, Gary leaped over the edge, landing on Sam's car below and causing significant damage in the process. Gary quickly placed Sam inside the damaged car, urging her to leave town before things escalated further. As she drove away, more blanks emerged from all directions, forcing Gary to sprint through the fields. He headed to the King's Head, where his 3 friends were waiting. However, trust had eroded after the earlier incident with Oliver, leading them to demand proof of humanity. Steve displayed a scar on his backside from when Gary had stabbed him with a broken bottle in their teenage years. Peter showed a scar from the time Gary, in a drunken state, had accidentally run him over with a car. Andrew revealed his crooked finger, a result of a drunken knife game with Gary. When Gary's turn came, he repeatedly banged his head against the wall, proving he was still human, if not very wise. Suddenly, they heard noises outside as the blanks closed in on their location. Faced with imminent danger, they fled through the back and into the woods. As Peter caught his breath, his high school bully appeared, distracting him and allowing the blanks to surround and overpower him. By the time Gary and his 2 remaining friends realized what had happened, it was too late. Peter had already been overpowered by the blanks. Andrew and Steve, sobering up to the gravity of the situation, decided it was time to leave. When Gary suggested moving to the next pub on the list, Andrew's frustration boiled over, leading him to punch Gary and carry him on his back as they navigated the robot-filled streets of Newton Haven. As they spotted a gigantic robot searching for them, they dashed into the nearest building, which happened to be the 10th pub on their list, the King's Head. Gary regained consciousness and poured himself a drink, symbolizing his determination to finish the Golden Mile. He tossed his car keys to Andrew and Steve, urging them to flee the town using his car parked outside. However, Gary couldn't abandon his quest. Driven by his unfinished mission, he dashed out of the pub, determined to complete what he had started. Andrew couldn't leave his friend to face the blanks alone, so he chased after Gary, trying to stop him. Despite the blanks' attempts to hinder them, they managed to maneuver past them until they reached the 10th pub, the hole in the wall. Andrew attempted to fend off the blanks, but their numbers overwhelmed him. Fortunately, Oliver arrived, driving Gary's car into the building, providing them with a temporary respite. However, Gary wasn't ready to give up yet. He leaped through the window and made a beeline towards their final destination, the World's End. As Gary stepped inside the World's End and grasped a beer in his hand, a wave of joy washed over him. However, Andrew, unwilling to watch his friend throw away his life for alcohol, knocked the beer to the ground. Determined to stop Gary, the two friends engaged in a heated confrontation. Despite Gary's efforts to push Andrew aside, the struggle continued. Gary reached for the pump, intending to pour himself a drink, but instead of beer, the entire counter began to sink, descending lower and lower until it reached the bottom. A bright light illuminated the sky, revealing the presence of the alien entity known as the Network. For the first time, they came face to face with the Network, which sought to take over the world. The Network claimed responsibility for Earth's technological advancements, including phones and the Internet. Moreover, it aimed to integrate Earth into its galactic community, considering it the least civilized planet in the galaxy. According to the Network, joining the galactic community would offer humans not only technological advancements, but also the opportunity for eternal youth. The Network presented Gary with a clone of his younger, happier self, offering him the chance to relive his life as he always wanted. However, Gary defiantly rejected the offer, insisting that there could only be one Gary King. He emphasized the importance of human uniqueness, rooted in our ability to make mistakes and cherish freedom above all else. Steve joined the fray, standing with Gary against the Network's proposal. As the trio of friends challenged the Network, their resolve grew stronger. When the Network proved too stubborn to convince, the Network just says fuck it and departed, leaving the blanks deactivated. With the departure of the Network, the blanks shut down, and chaos ensued as the surroundings began to crumble. Hastily, they dashed outside where Sam awaited them. They piled into the car and raced away, pursued by a massive shockwave that consumed everything in its path. The shockwave obliterated the technology brought by the Network, plunging Earth back into the Dark Ages. As for the blanks, they rebooted weeks later, returning to society and resuming their lives as they did before the Network's arrival. And with this movie comes to an end, thanks for tuning in, guys.